Senate will come to order. Senator Merrifield.
You all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks again. Mr. Majors, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Balmer, Baumgartner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia.
Excused?
Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert, John, Johnston,
Excused.
Jones, Kafalas, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez-Jimenez, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Scheffel, Scott, Sonnenberg, Stedman, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods, Johnston. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal from February 19th be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That motion is adopted and the journal is approved. Committee reports.
February 19, 2015, Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy sat in consideration and asked hearing on the following appointments. Recommends appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Colorado Tourism Office Board of Directors for terms expiring June 1st, 2018. Jamie Greenman of Alamosa, Colorado, representative of the destination marketing industry, appointed. Robert Stinchcomb of Lafayette, Colorado, serves as an at-large member from tourism-based industries, reappointed. Ian Stein of Larkspur, Colorado, a representative of other outdoor recreation industries, reappointed. February 19, 2015, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1121 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 19, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 127 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. February 19, 2015, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1047 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 20th, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 102 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 20, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 104 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 20, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 106 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 20, 2015, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 121 be referred to Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 19, 2015, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration of the Merits Committee recommends the following. House Bill 1029 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Senate Services.
February 20th, 2015, correctly printed, Senate Memorial 1, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 97, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bills 18, 32, 64, 103, 105, 111, and 115, and 119, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1039.
Message from the House.
February 19, 2015, Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted the advisory statute, House Bill 1092 and 1106. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted the advisory statutes, House Bill 1070 as amended, House Bill 1072 as amended, House Bill 1012 as amended, House Bill 1015 as amended, House Bill 1079 as amended, House Bill 1075 as amended, House Bill 1192 as amended, House Bill 1094 as amended, House Bill 1144 as amended. The House has passed on third reading and returns here with Senate Bill 21. February 19, 2015. Mr. President, the House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1013.
Message from the reviser.
February 19, 2015, we herewith transmit without comment House Bills 1092 and 1106, without comment as amended, House Bills 1012, 1015, 1070, 1072, 1075, 1079, 1094, 1144, and 1192.
Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Mr. Majors, please read the title of House Joint Resolution 1013.
House Joint Resolution 1013 by Representatives McCann and Nordberg and Senators Gonzalez and Cook concerning Human Trafficking Awareness Advocacy Day.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I move House Joint Resolution 1013 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Majors.
Whereas, human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world and is second in total criminal income only to drug trafficking, with an estimated annual global income of $32 billion. And whereas, according to the Trafficking in Persons Report 2014, it is estimated that as many as 30 million men, women, and children around the world are victims of what is now often described with the umbrella term human trafficking. And whereas in the United States, between 100,000 and 300,000 children are at risk for sexual exploitation, with an average age of entry into commercial sex of 12 to 14 years old. And whereas it is estimated that 76% of transactions for sex with underage girls start on the internet. And whereas between January 1st, 2012 and December 31st, 2014, the FBI Rocky Mountain Innocence Lost Task Force accomplished the following: led 174 sex trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation of children investigations, arrested 67 people for pimping and trafficking-related offenses, and 38 people for patronizing a prostituted child and sexually assaulting a child, fielded 834 tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and from citizens, law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, Department of Human Services personnel, victim advocates, nonprofits, and many others. Trained over 15,000 people about human trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation of children, and with the assistance of local law enforcement partners across the state, recovered 204 juveniles from commercially sexually exploitative situations. Whereas among the diverse populations affected by human trafficking, children are particularly at risk of involvement in sex and labor trafficking, especially those children who reside in the child welfare system. And whereas traffickers prey upon children and youth with low self-esteem and minimal social support, traits that tend to be highly prevalent among young people who are homeless or those in foster care due to their history of abuse, neglect, and trauma. And whereas minors forced into prostitution are more properly identified as victims and not criminals. And whereas one study shows as many as 50 to 85% of sexual trafficking victims are individuals who have previously lived or currently live in the child welfare system. And whereas as a result of the diverse systems that touch these children's lives, professionals in the child welfare, law enforcement, treatment, nonprofit, and faith-based communities must collaborate to develop a multidisciplinary response to protect victims of child trafficking. And whereas in Colorado, human trafficking is found in many industries, including field labor, herding and livestock, commercial cleaning services, commercial food production, healthcare, construction, domestic servitude, prostitution, elder care, retail sales, and others. And whereas no workers' labor should be compelled through the use of force, fraud, or coercion by someone trying to benefit from that labor. And whereas federal and local law enforcement officials recovered 6 child victims, ages 14 to 17, of domestic sex trafficking and arrested 2 alleged traffickers during the 2015 National Western Stock Show in Denver. And whereas the state of Colorado will support and initiate statewide efforts to investigate and prosecute traffickers and to provide services to victims of human trafficking. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 70th General Assembly of the state of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that the General Assembly, in recognition of Human Trafficking Awareness Advocacy Day on February 19, 2015, will build upon the 4 Ps: prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnerships, as set forth by the United Nations, which are utilized by the United States federal government and serve as a framework for the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking's Colorado project to comprehensively combat human trafficking. and that the General Assembly supports all efforts to prevent human trafficking in Colorado, including swift prosecution, education, and prevention, and provision of services for victims. The General Assembly will support and pass legislation directed to address human trafficking in Colorado. The General Assembly supports the work of the Colorado Human Trafficking Council and anticipates the report submitted by the Council. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Governor John Hickenlooper, Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman, Stephanie Villafuerte, Chair of the Colorado Human Trafficking Council and Executive Director of the Rocky Mountain Children's Law Center, and Betty Edwards, founder of the Human Trafficking Task Force of Southern Colorado.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. Please be seated. I'll be brief. I just wanted to express my appreciation for the opportunity to have this House Joint Resolution 1013 read. Many of you know, of course, yesterday was Human Trafficking Awareness Advocacy Day, and I think that overall it was a very successful day. There were some good presentations in the West Foyer. There was a rally. There were various people speaking. There was an exhibit that I think many people experienced. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. And also, one of the benefits that I had yesterday is that I got to meet with and connect with a Fort Collins-based group, the You Count campaign, which is based out of Timberline Church up in Fort Collins. And there were CSU students there as well as advocates. And I was really pleased that one of the participants was former State Representative Ken Summers, who's gotten very involved in this group, and it was really nice to see him since he, of course, lives in Fort Collins. So thank you very much, colleagues.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank my fine senator from Fort Collins for being a sponsor on this bill. It was an honor and privilege for me to be a part of it. The forum yesterday was an excellent opportunity to get the message out about human trafficking and what we're doing here in the legislature and what law enforcement is doing across the state and the number of arrests that have been made on people that prey on children and women. So it was a great day yesterday, and I can't tell you enough about the message yesterday about speak up. If you see something going on, don't be silent. Speak up so that we can protect the most vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, unfortunately, human trafficking is alive and well in Colorado, and it's alive and well in every single one of our districts. I have Senate District 26, which is just a regular old suburban district, and it is alive and well in Greenwood Village with labor trafficking, in Aurora with domestic worker, both sex and labor trafficking. It's alive and well just in our district as well when it comes to the kids in foster care who are targeted. So imagine being in the foster care system and imagine going to, trying to find your forever family and being pulled into this insidious web of crimes. It is a horrible, horrible scourge, I think, in our society. And we having the intersections of I-25 North and South and I-70 East and West, it is one of the targets in the country. Our state is one of the targets in the country for it. So I am very proud to support this resolution and make sure that we continue to get the word out there, because only a few years ago, none of us were talking about it here. And we are now, we were at an F level when it came to the Polaris Project nationwide, and they grade the various states with the legislations that they have. We were at an F. We are now up to almost a B, and that is because of just the legislation that we've done over the last couple of years. So I'm very proud that we are now bringing it to the forefront and talking about it. I encourage you to bring in some speakers into your town halls and some law enforcement or the people, for instance, in Jeffco is Jefferson County is a great example of this, with Lynn Johnson, head of human services there, has been really working on this very well from the human services arena and teaching her folks how to identify those who come in who might be trafficked in the system, in the child welfare system. Also, Jeffco, Judicial District 1, is going to be the first one in the state to have a targeted unit in their district attorney's office. So, and that's Katie Kurtz, who has been helping with this issue. Rocky Mountain Children's Law Center, the Innocence Loss Task Force, all of this takes a network of people from across the state to look at this prevalent silent epidemic that we are facing. So I just wanted to say thank you to both senators who are doing this resolution today, and we need to remember this as we go further in further years to look at what can we do in our roles to help prevent or intervene or make sure that these criminals get behind bars. So thank you so much. I stand in support of this resolution.
Is there further discussion? Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. This indeed is an important resolution, and yesterday was indeed an important day. These are important issues that we as a society can come together and agree upon. I want to make sure that we keep the focus on the important aspect of this, and that aspect is indeed the human trafficking. As I read through this, I looked at it and I saw on page 3 that it started listing some industries. And some of those industries that are included, we don't know how much human trafficking may be involved. But I think it's safe to say that almost every industry might have some impact with regard to human trafficking. I know the sponsors of the resolution are working on an amendment as I speak here to make sure that we include industries and not necessarily call out other industries with regard to this important resolution condemning human trafficking. And I'm not very good, quite frankly, at talking and saying things, waiting for things to happen. And with that, I just wanted to highlight, this is indeed an important resolution. I would ask for your support and ask for your support of the upcoming amendment. Thank you.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Sonnenberg. I actually think you are pretty good at giving us a little time to deliberate on things, so thank you for that. I move to HJR 1013, I move Amendment L001.
Mr. Majors, would you please read the amendment?
Amendment L001 to House Joint Resolution 1013 by Senators Gonzalez and Cook. Amend and gross joint resolution page 3, strike line 7 through 9, and substitute industries, and.
Senator Kafalis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As was articulated by Senator Sonnenberg, and out of respect for Senator Sonnenberg and his district out in Sterling, Amendment L001 basically takes out some language on page 3 so that we're not singling out a particular industry. It's striking lines 7 through 9 and substituting industries with a semicolon, and that is the intent. And again, it's out of respect, and it was brought to our attention. Thank you.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would concur with my fine senator from Fort Collins and the fine senator from the Sterling area. I ask that you support Amendment L01.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment 01 is adopted. To the resolution, Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion for the passage of HJR 013, and at the appropriate time ask that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Senator Cook.
I would ditto that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion on House Joint Resolution 1013? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Joint Resolution 1013 is adopted. There is an anticipated motion to add the morning roll call. Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I move that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Without objection, the morning roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order to take up consideration of resolutions, specifically Senate Joint Resolution 9.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The Senate will proceed out of order for Joint Resolution 9, Senate Joint Resolution 9. Senator Newell. Mr. Majors, actually, please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 9.
Senate Joint Resolution 9 by Senator Newell and Representative McCain concerning the establishment of February as Fibroid Awareness Month.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 9 and ask for it to be read at length.
Whereas, fibroid tumors of the uterus are extremely common and cause significant health problems for women. And whereas fibroid tumors are the most common tumor of the female pelvis. And whereas each fibroid represents a mutation of a single uterine muscle cell. And whereas fibroids are almost always benign and are treated as benign until proven otherwise. And whereas as a fibroid tumor grows, it can cause increased menstrual flow, worsening menstrual cramps, pelvic pain, pain with intercourse, and pelvic discomfort. And whereas about 80% of African American women and 70% of Caucasian, Hispanic, and Asian women develop uterine fibroids during their lifetime. And whereas fibroids are a significant economic burden to the American society, costing $34 billion annually in the United States. And whereas open abdominal fibroid surgery causes the most lost work time, but minimally invasive fibroid therapies can minimize lost work time and reduce costs by 36%, resulting in up to $12 billion in annual savings. And whereas a woman, her family, and her employer can benefit from substantial savings if she undergoes a laparoscopic fibroid procedure, and whereas some new procedures for treating fibroids allow a return to work in as little as 2 days. And whereas the Fibroid Awareness Project and part of the Colorado Medical Society Advanced Physician Leadership Program, which seeks to increase value in healthcare, and whereas the mission of the Fibroid Project is to educate physicians and the public on the less invasive, less painful options for fibroid treatment. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 70th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, hereby establish February as Fibroid Awareness Month to bring focus to and educate the public on informed choices about fibroid management. Be it further resolved that a copy of this joint resolution be sent to Governor John Hickenlooper, the members of the Colorado Medical Board, Porter Hospital CEO Randy Hafner, Colorado Medical Society Chief Executive Director Alfred Gilchrist, Swedish Medical Center CEO Mary M. White, and Sky Ridge Medical Center CEO Susan Hicks.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I realize the awkward juxtaposition of talking about human trafficking and then fibroids. I just want to put it out there, I understand that. But that said, the reason why I brought this resolution was because we have today with us in the chamber the doctor who is spearheading the Fibroid Project through the Colorado Medical Society. And he happens to be my own gynecologist. And the reason why I am mentioning this, and trust me, I won't get into TMI,
I think we're past that, but please continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. The reason why I bring this to you is that literally about a dozen years ago, I discovered that I had a fibroid that was the size of a cantaloupe in my own body. I did not know it, and I was taught and educated by my doctor that I would have, yes, there you go. Thank you, Senator Kerr.
Here for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. We laugh about it today in this room, but I can tell you that as a woman, when you receive that news, although they are often benign, it's scary as heck to receive that news, especially when I was told by my original doctor that I was going to have to go into full open abdominal surgery to get that removed. It was then I was referred to a Dr. Michael Moore. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I know that name, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you know that name. I thought it was so important for me to remember that name that I contacted him. And through that, I discovered through his expertise in laparoscopic procedures that I could get the fibroid removed within only a few days. I was back in functioning. I did not have to have open abdominal surgery. The company the insurance company also ended up paying less money. So economically, it also helped. And so I bring this forward to educate you and hopefully others around the state of the economic burden of across the country. We are spending $34 billion with a B dollars annually on just fibroids. So some of you in this room, especially if you're women, might definitely appreciate this information. And I wanted to say thank you to those of you out there, including Dr. Michael Moore, who is doing this kind of work to advance healthcare, and particularly less invasive, less painful, and less economically burdensome healthcare. So with that, Mr. President, I ask for an aye vote on Senate Joint Resolution 9.
Is there further discussion on Senate Joint Resolution 9? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 9 is adopted. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Without objection, the morning roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Third reading of bills. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 100.
Senate Bill 100 by Senator Stedman and Representatives Foote and McCain concerning implementation of recommendations of the Committee on Legal Services in connection with legislative review of rules and regulations of state agencies.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move that Senate Bill 100 lay over to February 27.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 100 will lay over until February 27th. Mr. Majors, please read the title of Senate Bill 97.
Senate Bill 97 by Senator Aguilar and Representative Landgraf concerning the eligibility of a supplemental needs trust to receive certain Public Employees Retirement Association benefits.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 97 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 97? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 97 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Minority Leader Carroll. Mr. Majority Leader. Senator Kafalis. Senator Neville. Senator Guzman. Senator Woods. Senator Donovan. Senator Crowder. Senator Heath. Senator Martinez-Humenick. Senator Ulibarri. Senator Baumgardner. Senator Todd. Senator Lambert. Senator Kerr. Senator Scott. Senator Jones. Senator Hodge. Senator Roberts. Senator Newell. Senator Holbert. Senator Stedman. Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Merrifield. Senator Grantham. Co-sponsors, Senator John. Senator Johnston. Senator Cook. Senator Marble. Co-sponsors, third wave. Please add the President. General Order, second reading of bills. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee resolve itself in the committee of the whole for the consideration of General Order's second reading of bills calendar.
The Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of General Order's second reading of bills. Senator Hill will take the chair. Human fibroid trafficking day. No joke. You can get fibroid right here. That's stuck.
Why?
Because I like it.
I mean, what's it for?
Oh, so you put my stuff on top and it doesn't come down.
Gotcha.
You can go over. Remember, hot mic. So, the Senate is all the stuff in the committee.
Appreciate that.
I wasn't just messing with you.
I know. You're right. No, you're right. The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 101?
Senate Bill 101 by Senator Balmer and Representative Pabon concerning the authority of employers to pay wages to employees electronically.
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 101 on second reading, and I also move the Business, Labor, and Technology report.
Senator Balmer to the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's my honor to present Senate Bill 101, and specifically the committee report was a collection of amendments that were requested from the banks, credit unions, a number of people that wanted tweaks in the bill. And one of the things that the committee report did is to lengthen the period within which an employee could request a pay card. To understand the committee report, I have to spend a little smidge of time explaining the bill, or the committee report doesn't make any sense. But just the part of the committee, the bill that is amended by the committee report, I'll focus on. This bill, the committee report, is about reloadable pay cards, allowing employers to pay their employees with reloadable pay cards. So, imagine you have a debit card from any bank that you would have a debit card. That's already in your wallet. And you have on that debit card however much money you have in your bank account. This is the same thing, except that it comes from your employer, and it's how your employer will pay you. So when you start working at a particular, and this just applies to the private sector, it does not apply to the public sector, because this is only amending the Wage Act, which applies to the private sector. So no public sector employers are affected by this. When you're going to get paid, let's say that you're going to get paid for the first 2 weeks of February. That payday would be February 13th. At 12:01 a.m. on Thursday night or Friday morning, however you look at that, at 12:01 a.m., your employer will deposit your pay into your pay card. You don't have to go down to the front office on Friday morning to get your paycheck. You don't have to go find the payroll people to get your pay. It was loaded onto your pay card at 12:01 a.m. while you were sleeping. And so that's what the bill is about. And I was just trying to explain that a little bit so that I could explain the committee report, because it doesn't make much sense if you don't understand what the bill does. And Mr. Chair, I do have an amendment to the committee report. Okay, yes. So I will ask for your adoption of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Balmer. Colleagues, is there any further discussion on the committee report?
No, it doesn't go before me.
Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Oh, yesterday. Okay, I'm sorry. That's fine. That's fine. Thanks. No problem.
What are we doing?
Your amendment goes first, that's all.
There's an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 18?
Amendment L018 to Senate Bill 101 by Senator Heath. Strike the Business, Labor, Technology Committee report dated February 9, 2015, and substitute, quote, amend printed bill, strike everything below the enacting clause and substitute. Section 1 in Colorado Revised Statutes 84101, add 8.5, 11.3, and 11.5 as follows. ATAC 4, ATAC 101, definitions as used in this article
Senator
unless
Heath.
the
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a little unusual.
Move it.
And so
Senator Heath, do you mind moving your amendment, sir?
Yes, I move Amendment 18, which is to the amending the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report.
Senator Heath.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, this is a little unusual, so bear with us. You know, in this body, we have a lot of things that we deal with. And I always tend to look at it in terms of the what and the how. And when we disagree on the what, we're usually in for a long philosophical conversation. And we've had a number of those already this session, and we're going to have many more before we're through on the May 6th. This, fortunately, it does not deal with the what. Pay cards are already in our statute. They're already authorized for employers to use with employees. So we're really only discussing how we do that. And Senator Balmer, I shouldn't say that, the presenter of the bill, my colleague, and I'm a member of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee with him, and we've had a lot of conversations on this, and you're going to see other amendments. But what I'm introducing here is the strike below that I introduced in the committee. And let me tell you why I did this. And first, you ought to know that this is based on the model state law around the country dealing with this subject of pay cards. Employers are more and more offering this. And recently, there was an article in the New York Times which is headlined, "Pay Via Card Workers Feel Sting of Fees." So this strike below basically deals with three things that I think are imperative that we offer employees. Number one, employees need to know, obviously, what they are signing up for. And I want to make certain that they do this in an affirmative way and not have an opt-out provision. So what the strike below does is provide an opt-in provision, that the employee has to affirmatively opt in. Secondly, they need to know in uncertain terms what they're getting into, what fees are being charged, what are all of the elements of the card. So we know, and the employee knows exactly what they're getting into. And third, as the New York Times article says, that these cards potentially have a lot of fees attached to them.
So who are the employees that are typically going to use this? Well, usually and almost entirely, these are employees that do not have their own paycheck, or excuse me, do not have their own bank account. This bill and all of the others say that employees can have direct deposit, just like I'm sure most of us do, have our paycheck monthly going directly to our bank. These are people that don't have a bank, don't have the ability to put their paycheck into a bank. So this offers them an alternative, and I am totally supportive of that. We need to offer people that do not have a bank account the opportunity to get their pay in a different way that allows them some flexibility without being charged horrendous fees. And that's where we get into the issue on this bill as it's presented, because the only thing that this bill does is disallows maintenance fees. The irony of this for me is that the lead witness that testified in committee on this bill was a representative of Home Depot. And Home Depot, as I think we all know, has a number of stores in Colorado. And this gentleman came in from out of state, I'm not sure where, and testified on the merits of the Home Depot program. And I asked him a few questions, and he again confirmed and affirmed how meritorious their program is. So after he testified, and a few days later, actually got the Home Depot program. And the irony of this for me is that my colleague who is sponsoring this bill says that basically the Home Depot lawyers participated in drafting the bill that we have in front of us. So I'm really talking about a bill, and we're looking at a bill that the Home Depot lawyers drafted, obviously with the help of our staff. And I have in front of you the actual plan itself that Home Depot has. And if we put this Home Depot plan into our bill, I would not be standing here because it is an excellent plan. It has basically the employee opting in, not opting out. It has an option of getting a paycheck and not just an electronic transfer. It has also a whole list of items for which there is no fee. Point of sale, in-network transactions, over-the-counter withdrawals, account overdrafts, all of these are no fees. So what this strike below basically does is put the plan that was testified to in committee into our bill. That's basically what this does. So the irony of this to me is that we had testimony from Home Depot about our bill, and yet our bill does not offer anything compared to what they're actually doing for their employees here in Colorado. So the reason I'm with renewing the strike below and trying to put it back in is basically to provide to our employees the same things that the Home Depot is providing to their employees. Folks, these are people that basically are on the low end of the wage scale. Fees being charged to them, and which this current bill allows, is not what we ought to be doing for our employees. If we're going to be doing them and giving them the option of a pay card, and yet charge them all of the fees, which Home Depot is not charging their employees, then I would say to you, that is not what we ought to be doing for our employees. We ought to be doing at least as much as Home Depot is offering them. So that is why I am offering this amendment, which basically allows employees to opt in with all of the information that they need to know into a pay card system. It offers them the opportunity to receive a check, and it offers them the option, the alternative of using a system. This Citibank, just so you know, this is a MasterCard that they provide their employees, a MasterCard backed up by Citibank, and they have options of going virtually anywhere in the country to use that pay card. That is not what our bill does. So I appreciate my colleague bringing this, but to do this and provide such minimum protection for our employees that have this card, I don't believe is right. There are all kinds of fees that can be charged on these cards that our employees should not have to be paying for. And the Home Depot employees are not paying them, specifically not paying the fees that this bill allows. I would say to you, let's do exactly what the Home Depot employee that came in here from HR testified, which is incorporated in Amendment 18. I would ask you to adopt the strike below and give our employees the option of using this system, but doing it in a fair way. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Heath. Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate the distinguished gentleman from Boulder. We're both Army veterans, and we work together on everything, and I appreciate the fact that he's been trying to work on this bill. The gentleman from Boulder was one of the most aggressive legislators in committee at asking the witnesses, what can we do about this, and what can we do about this? And he was asking very good questions to get at the issue of how do we make sure that the employees have protections. And so two of the amendments that I will later be offering, one to the committee report and one to the bill, are directly suggestions that came from those conversations. And I'm honored to have the support of a couple of my Democrat colleagues on those amendments. We definitely have been listening. We had meetings with opponents of this bill before committee and after it passed out of the Business Committee. And those opponents made suggested amendments to us, and two of those amendments are going to be offered this morning. If you look at page 3 of the bill, it outlines all of the protections that are offered to employees with these pay cards. Current law doesn't have these protections. Now, it is already true that there are a number of employers using pay cards in Colorado. It's not against the law to use a pay card in Colorado, but what we'll be doing with this bill is we're going to be making some guardrails if you want to pay employees with pay cards in Colorado. We're giving employees protections through this bill. Now, mind you, the distinguished colleague from Boulder has offered a strike below amendment, and I ask you members to always think about that and always, a strike below amendment that completely rewrites the bill is a bold move on the floor of the Senate. It is not a tweak. It's a complete rewrite. In fact, this rewrite is longer than the bill. It has a number of things that would probably make a pay card system unworkable for the employees and the employer. Now, the most important aspect of this conversation needs to be, what is the current system and what are we trying to enable employers and employees to do in the future? The current system is you can get paid by a paycheck. Well, if you get a paycheck, first of all, the paycheck has to arrive. So if anybody's going to be paid this coming Saturday, tomorrow, they might not get their paycheck because we're going to have 15 inches of snow by tomorrow night. So whatever truck is delivering the paychecks might not arrive. But let's say they do get their paycheck. How do they get their paycheck? Do they get it in the mail, or do they go down to the front office to pick up their paycheck? Well, with a lot of employees, particularly the ones that don't have bank accounts, they don't ask for their check to be mailed to them. They obviously don't ask for their check to be deposited in their bank account because they don't have a bank account. And they also don't oftentimes have good credit. One of the advantages to allowing these pay cards is the employer gives you the pay card the very moment you become an employee. You didn't have to qualify for that debit card. You got this pay card because you're an employee. And I do appreciate the gentleman from Boulder bringing up Home Depot, one of our finest employers in America. Home Depot has been given national awards for how they treat veterans, how many veterans they hire. They give 10% discount for military personnel. And Home Depot came to our Capitol, one of their representatives came to our Capitol and asked us to pass this bill. They did not ask us to pass the strike below that's being offered by the distinguished gentleman from Boulder. Now, our bill does have employee protections in it, and we're going to offer 2 more amendments that provide more employee protections. But if we were to adopt the gentleman from Boulder's strike below amendment, possibly, quite probably, the vendors that provide these pay cards would say, we can't work within that system. It's way too prescriptive. And so the result of that would be that employers would not be able to offer pay cards unless they are doing it the way they're doing it right now. Right now, employers have no restrictions at all on the fees that they can charge on their pay cards. After our bill becomes law, they will have restrictions. And that's in the bill and in the 2 amendments that we're getting ready to offer. So, ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully request a no vote on the strike below amendment from my distinguished colleague from Boulder.
Thank you, Senator Ballmer. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I rise in opposition to the strike below amendment. I had the opportunity to chair Business, Labor, and Technology as Senate Bill 101 was coming through our committee, as our esteemed chair was the sponsor of the bill. And one of the things that I had to listen to very closely, being the chair, was argument that somehow that this bill might, if it becomes law, might hold an employee captive to the electronic pay card. There was a lot of discussion about an amendment that is in the committee report that requires the employee to designate with the employer by the end of that first pay period where he or she is actually working for that employer, an electronic transfer, and this I think is the difference between opt-in, opt-out. And there was great concern that if the employee missed that date, that they would be stuck in the pay card option, but that's not accurate. It would just be if you missed that date, you would go into the next pay period and say, hey, I'd like to have an electronic transfer. I don't want the pay card. And if you read the bill carefully, as it currently exists, we see that if an employer, and as my friend from Arapahoe County indicated earlier, pay cards are available now, but if this bill becomes law, it says employer is going to do a pay card, they have to do it this way. So there's actually additional protections in this bill that don't exist in law right now, and that's a good thing. But the employer provides the employee with one withdrawal, either by check, automated teller machine, withdrawal, or electronic transfer per pay period with no fees. So if you don't have a bank account, an employee does not have a bank account, they have therefore not designated an electronic transfer, that information for their employer, and the employer automatically generates the pay card. That employee then, wherever he or she would ordinarily go to get a paycheck cashed, maybe that's at the employer's bank. They walk in with that card, according to this bill and what would become law, they would be able to transfer the full amount on that pay card into cash. If they wanted a cashier's check, for instance, issued by that bank, I suppose there could be a fee from the bank to do that. But if they want to just take that in cash, I believe that they would be able to go to the employer's bank and say, I want to cash this out, and the employer or the company managing that pay card would charge no fee. If that employee wanted to use the pay card like a debit card or a credit card, then there could be fees. But it says right here that any such fees in that case would need to be disclosed to the employee so that he or she would know what their options are, what their options were. But this bill, if this becomes law, this would not put an employee in a position of saying, I have to pay fees, I have to give up part of my wages in order to get my paycheck, in order to get the cash, in order to move that into an account. I guess we're operating on the hypothetical that the employee has no account to move those funds to. But over time, if that employee does open an account at a bank or a credit union, at no time would this bill, if it became law, at no time would the employee be boxed out of the opportunity to walk into the personnel office and say, I want to move off of the pay card system and have you transfer my pay into this account. There's never a time where that option goes away. So this was a point of contention, great discussion in the committee hearing, and I came to understand it clearly that there isn't a deadline. And I think some may have perceived that to be a deadline, that by the end of the first pay period, if the employee doesn't designate a pay account, then they're just stuck in the pay card option. But that isn't accurate. At no time does that option go away. I really appreciate the sponsor bringing this bill. I appreciate the testimony on both sides and the questions from all members. But I am satisfied that this bill, if it were to become law, as amended with the committee report, that employees would have choice and they would have greater protection than they do today. And they would be able to use the pay cards with no fee if that's the way they decided to manage it. And I oppose the strike below amendment because if an employer such as Home Depot offers a premium level pay card plan with additional protections built into it, they should be able to be rewarded as an employer for offering that premium level plan. But if there is a company that cannot afford that premium level plan, let's not put things in statute that would price that option out of their ability and put them into a one-option system, and that's a paycheck. And if we only have the paycheck and our premise for arguing, the premise for the strike below, the amendment, if the premise is that that employee does not have an account, if they're stuck in the current dynamic of having a check, then they're going to, for instance, a grocery store, check cashing service, the employer's bank, wherever, and they probably are subject, in some of those cases, of paying a fee. The pay card does not put employees at greater risk. I appreciate the senator from Arapahoe County bringing this bill, and do ask for your confidence in a no vote on the strike below amendment.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this amendment. This would be, in my view, the best model legislation that we could provide for this bill. I do understand that there's probably not the support in this chamber for it, but what it does do that I think is critical is the opt-in piece, so that employees would be able to opt in rather than the opt-out, which means that when you're filling out your new hire paperwork and you're trying to do it as fast as you can, it really takes an extra X mark, so to speak, on your paperwork in order to opt out of it. So I would ask for an aye vote on Amendment 18.
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to remind you members that one of the largest employers in Colorado that's public sector is currently using pay cards, and that's the University of Colorado. And that's how mainstream pay cards have become. And remembering that if we don't allow pay cards in Colorado, then we're going to be forcing employees back to pay checks. And pay checks just mean that they have to go get them cashed, and they have to pay a fee to get them cashed. With pay cards, they're going to get their wages for free. It's going to be loaded onto their pay card in their wallet. They don't have to go anywhere, do anything, pay any fees. So if this is, and I appreciate the flagship university of CU, which is in Boulder, the fact that they pay their employees with pay cards. And, but if we adopt this strike below amendment, we're going to be putting ourselves in a position where very few employers in the private sector are going to be able to do what CU currently does, and that is offer pay cards to their employees. So I respectfully ask for a no vote on the strike below.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just remind colleagues, we're not discussing whether or not we have a pay card system. We already have it. And so any allusion to the fact that we are eliminating pay cards, please disregard that. As I said to you, we're not talking about the what. We have a pay card system. We're trying to talk about how we make it better. The bill sponsor alluded to the fact that nobody's going to do this. I would say to you that this Home Depot system, which is sponsored by the city, that's Citibank, payroll card program. They are doing this all the way across the country. They are the sponsor, and it's the MasterCard that they produce with all of the no fees attached, excuse me, that I read off to you. So this statement that nobody's going to do this is obviously erroneous. They're doing it. This program has everything and more than the model legislation does. So the fact that companies are not going to do this, this is still lucrative, obviously, to Citibank, or else they wouldn't be doing this. Citibank is one of the major companies that obviously is behind Visa, MasterCard, and all of the others. This is their program. This is their MasterCard. They're willing to do it. Obviously, they're making money on it, and they're obviously one of our largest employers is what uses this. So any scare tactic that this is going to put people out and not allow them to do it, I would say is erroneous. I would ask your support of Amendment 18.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I urge everybody in here to vote against the amendment on the floor currently and support the bill. You know, we did get information from the University of Colorado that this is going to save them $50,000 a year on printing and mailing of paper paychecks, their move that they did to the card. I think that's important. $50,000, that would definitely take care of a few scholarships for people, or actually adding on maybe possibly a part-time staff person or something else at the University of Colorado, and that actually helps higher education. So I urge defeat of the amendment and adoption of the bill.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 18. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and the amendment is lost. There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 14?
Amendment L014 to Senate Bill 101 by Senators John Newell and Balmer, amend the Business Labor Technology Committee report dated February 9, 2015, page 1, line 10, strike transfer and substitute transfer.
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, it's my honor to offer Amendment 14 to the committee report along with my lovely colleagues. I can't use their names, but they are lovely. One is from Littleton, and one is from Wheat Ridge. And this is an amendment that goes to some of the issues that were raised in committee by the opponents to the bill, saying we would like you to have more protections in for employee choice, allowing them, if they want to be paid with a paper check. So that's what this amendment does. We're going to make sure that affirmatively an employee can still be paid by a paper check if they want to be. We do not want to inadvertently take away that choice. So this is a very good amendment for employee choice and protecting employees' abilities to make decisions about how they're paid.
Senator Balmer, will you please move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize that I didn't do that. I do move amendment L014.
Thank you, Senator Balmer. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I obviously rise in support of Amendment 14, which does cover the issue of making sure that there is an option for employees if they still want to continue to receive paper checks. And I wanted to make sure that that was possible for the employees so that we don't do away with those who really want to use paper checks. So I am an aye on this Amendment 14.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we've had a lot of discussion about whether they should be an opt-in, opt-out. As far as I'm concerned, actually running a small business, when I hire on, I have a packet of a lot of paperwork that they have to fill out. One of those pieces of paper right now today is how they want to get paid. So on the form that they fill out with me, do they want direct deposit? They actually have to mark a little box. So I would add, do you want a written check? Do you want direct deposit? Do you want a pay card? So it would be upon the time of hire that I did it as a small business. So as there's a whole lot of talk about opt-in, opt-out. To me, this is an opt-in because they literally would be telling me that they wanted me to pay them in which way. Check the box if you want an electronic check, a direct deposit. Check the box if you want a written check, or check the box if you want a pay card. So to me, the conversation has been a little bit off because as a business, that's how I would run it. And I'm guessing that's probably how most of them do it when they fill out all their paperwork when they're a new employee.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the minority leader has made a great suggestion on tweaking this amendment. So I would respectfully, I don't know if the new amendment is ready, so I will respectfully request a senatorial 2.
Senator Balmer, would you like to withdraw this amendment while we wait for another one?
We will be withdrawing this amendment and replacing it with one less word in the new one. But I was just requesting a senatorial 2.
We will take a break.
Thank you. Ready to go.
The committee will come back to order. Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I withdraw Amendment 14.
Amendment 14 is withdrawn. There's an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 19?
Amendment 019, Senate Bill 101 by Senators John Newell and Balmer, amend the Business Labor Technology Committee report dated February 9.
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move Amendment 19.
To the amendment, Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to thank the minority leader for making a great suggestion to the amendment that the lovely ladies from Littleton and Wheat Ridge and the rather unlovely member from Centennial, we were offering Amendment 14, and the minority leader made a great suggestion to take out the word formal, because who knows what formal means. Excellent suggestion. So this is the same amendment. 19 is the same amendment that we just asked you to vote for, but it doesn't have the word formal. So I would ask for an aye vote.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I ask for an aye vote on Amendment 19 as well. And this makes it even easier for the employee so that they can literally check off a box, probably on their new hire paperwork, and request a written check.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I do rise in support of L014 and also appreciate the minority leader's suggestion of striking formal. I'm not sure if that would have been parchment and calligraphy, but maybe a note or an email now is sufficient. But L014 goes to reinforce the premise, I believe the reality, that there isn't a hard and fast deadline for when an employee would have to opt either electronic transfer, paper check, or a pay card. And this, again, helps clarify that really any time during their employment, if they make that written request to the employer, they can opt into to getting that paper check. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 19. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Amendment 19 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, members, I won't spend much more time because we talked about the bill when we did but I do have an amendment to the bill, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is Amendment 17.
There is an amendment on the desk.
Yeah.
Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 17?
Amendment L017 to Senate Bill 101 by Senators Balmer, John,
Senator
and
Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move Amendment 17, which is an amendment from the gentle lady from Wheat Ridge, the gentle lady from Littleton, and me. And this is an amendment that says that employees can withdraw their entire wages out of the pay card without fees twice a pay period. Currently in the bill, they were allowed to do that without fees once a pay period. Now they're going to be allowed to do it twice a pay period. Again, this was a request that was discussed in committee, and it's a request that we listened to make it better for employees, easier for employees, and I ask for an aye vote to Amendment 17.
Senator John.
Be careful, I'll ask for a senatorial 5. Okay, so I do support this amendment and would ask for support as well. I think one of the big discussions that we had in committee is some of the fees that were charged. The thing that impressed me was, number one, I do have a lot of employees that go to a check cashing facility, and it always kind of bothers me because I know that the percentage that they pay is so high because many of them don't have a bank. This way, there is no fee. They can go cash their check, they can get all of their money, there is no fee. One of the concerns that was brought up, well, what if they want to do it again? Well, you don't have that same opportunity at a check cashing facility, I will tell you that. But we all agreed that that would probably be, fine to do. And what I might say is, what I found interesting in testimony when we were listening to the gentleman from Home Depot, there were like 20,000, correct me if I'm wrong, 20,000 like ATM machines where they go for free. They don't charge any kind of a fee whatsoever. So if you're working at Home Depot and you use the ones there or any of them that fall in that whole network, there are no fees. So this just gives them one more time where they can go in with one of the businesses and withdraw with no extra fee attached. So we're giving them 2 times instead of 1 per pay period. So.
Is there any further? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to obviously rise in support and ask for an aye vote on 17 to give greater access to an employee's own pay. So please vote aye on 17.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 17? Seeing none, the adoption before the body is, or the question before the body is, motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 17. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 17 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 101.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me thank my sponsor and colleague for making these amendments. It does make it better, but in my humble opinion, it still is not something that I can support, and let me tell you why. The current statute requires an employee to opt in. The current statute requires an employee to opt in to a pay card system. What we have done with this bill is require an employee to opt out, which means that the employee, and let's talk about who the employee is in this case that's going to take advantage of this. This is an employee that undoubtedly does not have a bank account. An employee that does not have a bank account is being asked to make a decision and is going to have to pay all fees except a maintenance fee, and I appreciate we've gone to 2 withdrawals, that helps. But an employee is being put in a position that they're going to have to opt out without all of the safeguards that my amendment would have put in terms of notice and all the other things that are required. So I appreciate the effort that has been made, but because of the fact that we're requiring an employee to opt out of this, I'm going to ask for a no vote.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to ask for a yes vote. And I guess the one disagreement that I've had with my good colleague from Boulder is he keeps saying that we're having this is about the employee that has no bank account. Okay, so right now they can go spend what kind of a percentage of their paycheck that they have worked mega hours for at a cash checking facility. That's the choice. They don't have a bank account. They can go spend how much money at a check cashing place to get their money that they have worked so hard. We're giving them an alternative. We are saying, okay, you know what? Instead of spending how much money that you have worked for, hours for this week, and I know this is a fact because I asked my employees, how about we take and add a way that you can get all of your money, like you do at a check cashing facility, with no fee? And that's bad how? Please tell me how that's bad. Because my employees thought it was kind of a cool deal. So right now, work their fingers to the bone, have no bank account, and they get to pay how much money to a check cashing facility to get their money. Or say we'll give you a pay card. It doesn't cost you a dime to go cash your paycheck that you have worked so hard for. The alternative just seems like a no-brainer for me because I think they should have the choice not to have to go to a check cashing facility that takes so much of their money that they have worked so hard for. With that, I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had just a quick question for the sponsor about these pay cards and how they work and where they work. Would I be able to take my pay card to an ATM machine that's located in a liquor store or a casino or an adult entertainment establishment What about a marijuana dispensary? Could I use my pay card in the machine in those places? And if so, should we amend the bill to maybe put provisions in there so that employers could restrict that? Because heaven forbid that someone would do that. I mean, shouldn't we protect against the evil of someone using their card in one of those kinds of places?
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I appreciate the question, and I appreciate all of the hard work that the cannabis entrepreneurs have done to grow our economy, grow in many different levels. And I suppose the answer is that if a debit card could be accepted in certain settings, this would be the same as a debit card. So anywhere that a debit card is accepted, wherever that is in Colorado, and I apologize that I don't know if you can currently use a debit card in those settings that you asked about. If you can, then probably you could use this. This is a prepaid pay card that operates like a debit card. As you know, if you have a debit card, your debit card is your checking account, basically, and if you use it to pay for something, it comes out of your checking account immediately. You can go home and look at your checking account online, and you'll see that it's already been taken out. So it operates exactly the same way. So I guess the answer is, if they take debit cards at those locations, then it would take this. It would take this card.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of Senate Bill 101. However, I want to make it very clear, I would absolutely prefer the Heath amendment on the bill, I forget the number, 18, thank you, that has the model legislation in it that restricts the fees that can be assessed, that has direct access to an employee's pay, that allows for an opt-in rather than an opt-out. I would prefer that. However, that said, what I also know are the political realities that we have in this building and what can get passed and what cannot get passed. So compromises at times need to be made. And currently, if this bill were to not go through, there are no restrictions on any of that or no guidance on any of that. So the employers who are using the pay cards today can do just about anything that they want. So I think that this does put a few guardrails on, and making sure that the employee gets access, that they have choice about being paid by a pay card or being paid by paper check, that they have access to cashing their own pay 2 times in a period without fees. So with that, I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 101.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsors and those that have been digging pretty deeply into the public policy on pay cards. It's conflicted, as was mentioned before. I think in a few key ways, Senate Bill 101 moves us forward from where we are in the status quo, ultimately starting off with a fundamental belief that people shouldn't have to basically get feed in order to get access to their paychecks. So in the sense of giving a second withdrawal, I think it's progress. But fundamentally, switching from a system where an employee must now, under current law, affirmatively opt in to do this, to a system where the burden will now shift on an employee where they are presumptively getting paid in a way that, depending on the maximum withdrawals allowed at an ATM or how often they need it, they wind up still getting feed for collecting their paycheck. Until or unless we can get it in the form where an employee is back to being able to opt in instead of opt out, despite seeing some progress in some places on some pieces that I think are good in the bill, until we're back to an employee opting in instead of opting out would still be a no.
Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 101? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 101. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 101 is adopted. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 135?
Senate Bill 135 by Senators Martinez, Humanic, and John concerning modifications to statutory provisions governing urban redevelopment affecting public bodies in connection with urban renewal projects.
Senator Sheffels. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move that Senate Bill 135 lay over to February 27.
You've heard the motion that we lay over Senate Bill 135 until February 27th. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 135 is laid over until February 27th. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 8?
Senate Bill 8 by Senator Roberts, Representative Vigil, concerning the promotion of water conservation in the land use planning process.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 8. I move the corrected committee report, the Appropriations Committee report, and L004.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. First to the Agriculture Committee report.
In the Agriculture Committee report, what we did was we addressed some of the concerns that we heard from different stakeholders and basically reduced the bill a bit. And although we still retain the training programs, introductory programs, refresher programs, and advanced programs on water use, water demand, water consumption for land use planners, best management practices for land use planners.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Colleagues, is there any further discussion on the Agriculture Committee report? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of the Agriculture Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Agriculture Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just added the appropriations clause.
Seeing no further discussion, colleagues, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Roberts, there is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 4?
Amendment L004, Senate Bill 8 by Senator Roberts, amend the corrected agricultural natural resources.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We conform the language in the bill to include the words water efficiency, just to make it parallel in all parts of the bill. And I ask for your support of L004.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 4? Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should have also mentioned we amend the language that from the committee report, and we reference best management practices for water demand management, water efficiency, and water conservation that may be implemented through land use planning efforts. Again, I ask for your support.
And in case I missed it, will you please move Amendment 4?
I did, but I'll do it again. I move L004 and ask for your support.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 4 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill comes to the body from the Water Resources Review Committee. It is a integration of land use planning and water planning. What we heard through our meetings across the state was that there are a number of people who work in the land use planning at the local government level who would like to know more about best management practices for water demand management, water efficiency, and water conservation. What we would do through this bill is the Colorado Water Conservation Board would provide recurring free training programs for local land use planners who are trying to maximize the water use in their areas. And with that, I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 8? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 8. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 8 is adopted. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 123?
Senate Bill 123 by Senator Crowder and Representative Primavera concerning the ability of a person eligible for prescription drug benefits under a health benefit plan to choose the pharmacy at which to fill a prescription drug order for certain medications.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I bring before you a great bill. It's SB 123, and I move the committee report.
Mr. Crowder, will you please move the bill and then the committee report?
And I also move SB 123, the committee of the whole.
Thank you, Senator Crowder. To the committee report.
This bill was heard in committee, and it had a favorable recommendation, and there was an amendment on it. Well, anyway, it come out of committee, favorable conditions to this, so I move that be accepted. Health and Human Services Committee. The amendment, what that amendment did basically was eliminate the physical note. What we did, originally the bill indicated send dine after the session was over, and by doing that, it created a physical note that the department would have to make the adjustment, and so by moving this to January 1, 2017, there would be no physical note on that. So I felt this was in keeping with keeping healthcare costs down. So we ran that amendment and was successful.
Thank you, Senator Crowder. Colleagues, is there any further discussion on the Health and Human Services Committee report? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of the Health and Human Services Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. Senator Crowder, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have an amendment on that.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 2?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 123 by Senator Crowder.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, the amendment is very simple. What it does is prohibits the manufacturer from establishing a limited distribution network for one or more of its products. And the reality of this, the amendment, what it does, it accentuates the bill. What we have is a bill that we have what they call the PBMs that have control of how specialty drugs for biologicals are dispensed. And what this bill does basically is it gives the option for a subscriber or a patient to deal directly with a pharmacy. And the reality is there's a lot of, right now the PBMs have control of this, and it's all mail order out. And the specialty drugs or the biologicals are they're medicines for such things as hepatitis or rheumatoid arthritis that is being mailed out to that consumer. And the problem with it is in rural Colorado, what we try and do is have a direct relationship with not only our doctor but our pharmacist, so that pharmacist will have direct contact. The way it is now, your PBMs will call that patient up on the telephone and tell them how to administer these drugs. So what we're trying to do is have a personalized contact with that individual, and there is no difference in cost at this point in time with that PBM, whether it's a mail order out or directly or to that pharmacy. So it does not increase cost. In my opinion, this is a first step on a pharmaceutical issue that we can actually control cost. What we have is a situation, if you look at this particular bill and the people who have come out in opposition to it, it's all about control. It's about controlling the way the pharmacies, the cost of them. It's about the way it's distributed. Everything is about control. If indeed we are going to talk about lowering health care costs, if we can't get a very simple bill like this through, we got a problem. The issue is, with that direct contact from that individual, that direct contact, the openness of how the medical issue works. But what we need to do is we need to realize that there's a stranglehold on our small pharmacies on this. Your large pharmacies already have this ability to do it. So if you're a large pharmacy, you will continue to be able to disperse these pharmaceuticals. But if you're a small rural pharmacy, you do not have a chance in this to compete with this. So with that, and there'll be more to talk about, but I'd like to move the amendment forward, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Crowder.
I'd like to move SB 123, L002. I think it's a very good amendment, and it does address the manufacturer. It's basically saying, he's not going to be affected by this.
Thank you, Senator Crowder. Colleagues, Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of Amendment 2, and it does show a good compromise and helps for the support of the bill from the pharmaceutical folks, and I think that is key. So I ask for an aye vote on Amendment 2.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I actually don't know that I completely understand what this does. If this says that a manufacturer can establish a limited distribution network, what's to prohibit a manufacturer from saying, I'm only going to send it to the same pharmacies that the insurer would use anyway? So doesn't this negate the effect of the bill?
Senator Crowder.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator from Denver. I'd rather call you Irie, but, what this does is a manufacturer will basically continue to manufacture it, and the manufacturer is trying to stay out of the squabble, whether it's mail ordered out or whether this bill passes and it's distributed to the pharmaceuticals. And what the manufacturer is saying, either way we go, he's okay with it. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a manufacturer. He's not going to block the small town pharmaceuticals from getting this.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I might wade in on this and add a little more fuzziness to the clarity of our understanding of this issue, is I understand the bill. The bill is dealing with a network that the insurance company establishes, and this amendment says at the manufacturer level, the manufacturer can pick and choose who they want to distribute their product. The bill states that at the insurance level, the network the insurance company sets up for pharmacies to distribute drugs to the people they are insuring. The bill says that if you're within that network, you should have the prerogative, if you, a pharmacist, is it within the network of the insurance company's distribution network, that every pharmacy should be able to dispense every drug that they are capable of dispensing. I mean, if they don't have it on their shelves, they can't dispense it. If they have determined as a pharmacy that there's a particular drug that they are not capable of storing properly or giving the proper administration, then the pharmacy can take that prerogative of not. But the amendment I see as an appropriate level for the manufacturer to determine who should be able to distribute their drug. Did that add some clarity to the fuzziness of the understanding of this very clear bill?
Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would ask for an aye vote on this amendment. Maybe just some of that clarity that the Senator from Berthoud was trying to make on that amendment. We are talking about the difference here between the manufacturer and what's happening with the manufacturer versus the lower level with the PBMs. And the manufacturers still have that ability under this amendment going into this bill to still have the same distribution network that they already currently have. What we're dealing with in the rest of the bill is the PBMs, and as the senator from Berthoud mentioned, the distribution post that point in time.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 2? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Amendment 2. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 2 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. As I stated before, right now, your specialty drugs are mail ordered out, and some of those such as rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, specialty drugs, and biologicals. And all we're trying to do is say the small independent pharmacy should also have the right to disperse this if that pharmacy chooses to get involved. And what this does is give an option to the patients whether to take mail order or have a direct contact with that local pharmaceutical, which in rural Colorado, we depend on our pharmacist as much as we do our doctor. It's a way that our medical profession is set up, and I think it's a good bill, and I would ask for support and an aye vote on it.
Thank you, Senator Crowder. Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the bill sponsor because I know that he's really interested in helping patients, and I really appreciate that. And I know that he shares the frustration many of us do with the way our healthcare system is evolving. And unfortunately, because of the escalating costs in healthcare, the evolution is leading to less and less choice for patients. And you see this in networks. There might have been doctors you could see before with your insurance that you can no longer see. And you also see it in pharmacies. There might have been the opportunity to go to any pharmacy, and now you're limited in what pharmacies you need to go to. Interestingly, it's been like this in the public sector for a long time. Patients who are uninsured, for example, who get seen at Denver Health really only get their deals if they're seen at Denver Health. And the reason for that is because Denver Health negotiates all their prices to get the best deal possible. And that's exactly what our insurers do. Our insurers are negotiating prices for these really high-cost drugs. And the rheumatoid arthritis, my sister has this. She's on this drug called PERA. And she worked for Kaiser, so I assume they get a really good price. The price Kaiser has been paying for PERA was $1,800 a month, $24,000 a year for one drug for one patient with rheumatoid arthritis. And so while the bill correctly states that the patient wouldn't pay any more for the drug, unfortunately, the insurer would pay more for the drug, because the insurer is bulk negotiating their prices. So Denver Health doesn't let patients get their drugs at King Soopers because they can't get the same price at King Soopers that they can get at the Denver Health pharmacy. And that's exactly what this bill is doing. This bill is saying, we're still going to give you the drug for whatever your copayment is. You can go to any pharmacy you want, and we're going to pay the difference in the price, because the insurer would ultimately have to pay that price difference. And sadly, this is not a small number. We were pleased to report for a number of years that healthcare costs were rising at a slower rate. Well, the rate of healthcare inflation is increasing again. Interestingly, our costs for hospitals are going down. Our costs for pharmaceuticals are going up, specifically specialty drugs. And that's what this bill addresses. So these are very rare, very expensive drugs. And there's a report out that was created for our Medicare department showing that by allowing mail service pharmacies, it's estimated that $5.1 billion will be saved in 2015. $5.1 billion. And over the 10-year period of 2015 to 2024, $59.6 billion are estimated to be saved. So this is a tremendous cost. And I know that it sounds cold and distant that you don't get to walk to your local pharmacy, but interestingly, they've done research on how mail-in pharmacies do compared to local pharmacies. And so they actually have staff on call 24/7. The patient can call them anytime. Depending on the drug, the staff might be calling the patient every couple of days to make sure they're taking the drug, to make sure they're not having an adverse event, and to substitute the drug as soon as possible. And preliminary research has shown that you not only decrease drug costs by 7 to 12% by managing your drugs in this way, you actually decrease non-drug medical costs. So people end up less often in the hospital by 10 to 40%, depending on the different studies. And so I respectfully ask for a no vote on this. I think it unfortunately has the potential to have huge increases in cost, and as we move forward and the percentage of our medical costs that are taken up by these specialty drugs continues to increase, it will become more and more of an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to respond to that. It's pretty interesting on this. The competition that drives a discount for placing the drug on the formula, whether they're shipping the PBM, whether it ships mail order or small town pharmacy, is exactly the same price. What they do not get is that direct contact. And I will just mention one other item. The large insurers right now have pharmacies that they're doing this with, such as Aetna Specialty, Signatel Drug, WellPoint Precision. So by doing this with the small town pharmacy will not drive up prices because the PBM charges the same amount regardless who they send it to, whether it's through mail order, a huge pharmacy, or a small town pharmacy. So it will not drop price. But what we will do is we will get some control on our medicines and our pharmacists. Thank you.
Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to that same point that the sponsor just made, if we have that same price coming down from the PBMs down into the retailers, down into the smaller pharmacies, when we have these drugs available on a broader scale across more pharmacies, not just the big boys, but also the little guys right there in downtown Canyon City or Florence or wherever in Colorado, that broader spread of suppliers of the specialty drugs, the retailers, Economics 101 does not make it say that the prices will go up because you have more options across more retailers. Quite the opposite is probably true. I would ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 123? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support, strong support of Senate Bill 123, and this was difficult for me at first because it seemed like it was going to be a cost driver, and that with the lens of only thinking about cost, then I would say, yeah, maybe I would vote against this bill. However, that's only a small piece of it. What they are not counting on is the local economic development. This is a David and Goliath issue. This is about big business versus small local pharmacies, small local businesses that rely on our locals going into their retail shops. This is about the call centers and the mail order facilities that are literally creeping up across this country, who are in cahoots, so to speak, with the insurance plans that are saying, if we fix this right, we can be the Walmarts and Costco's of the world and control the costs. Yes, we can control some costs. However, do they know the patients better than our local pharmacists? Do they know our relationship or the criticality sometimes of our complex diseases that are affected or conditions that are affected by these? No. And with Costco, with Sam's Club, you have a choice. You can get a card. You have a choice to be a member or not. With this, you lose your choice. If you vote no on this bill, the patient loses their choice. Let me tell you a quick story about a mail order prescription for my cat through my veterinarian, and now I am forced to go to mail order pharmacy to fill my prescriptions for my cat's thyroid medication. So here's the deal. I ordered that 2 weeks ago. I still don't have it in my home. I still don't have it for my cat after calling my vet 3 times. I don't even have access to the pharmacy. I don't even know who Roadrunner Pharmacy is. I just know that I don't have my prescription because, well, you have President's Day in there, and then you have whatever their excuse is for not having the prescription in my home, but it's not at my home 2 weeks later. And I don't want that to happen to a person whose life might depend on it. In addition, one of the stories that one of the pharmacists talked about, you've heard about these specialty drugs. What are they? How did they work? How careful it is that we need to be with these biologics and these biosimilars, et cetera. We had another bill and talked a little bit about that. So what does happen with it sits in the hot sun of your mailbox? What does happen to some of those? One of my questions. The other question is that one of the pharmacists talked about who gets on what drugs get on these specialty drug lists? They make it up. Some of the pharmacists have been not able to prescribe drugs that they've been filling for 2 decades, and then all of a sudden it goes on a specialty drug list because somebody up here says so, and now they can't fill it anymore. That's what we heard in committee. So it takes the choice away, not only for the patient, but it takes the choice away from the local pharmacy, and it takes the choice away from the local businesses. So the small businesses that need our support, especially in the rural areas now more than ever, you should be voting yes for this bill because of those reasons. If you want a fair marketplace, and if you want fair competition that includes small business, you should be voting yes for this bill. There are estimates by 2018 that specialty pharmacies will make up 50% of the total prescription spending. You think big business wants a cut of that? Absolutely. But I'm here to tell you small business deserves a cut of that, and we deserve a cut of our patient choice. I don't want to be forced into mail order. I've already have to do that with my cat. I sure don't want to do that with my own medicines, and I am a strong aye vote on Senate Bill 123.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not want to drag this argument out very much further, I believe, but it is a complicated one. When it came to the committee which I chair, I didn't know which direction I was going to vote on this bill. I listened to the testimony from both sides very carefully and came to the conclusion that this is a complicated issue. And that's part of the dilemma, is we've made such a monstrous complication to billing and to the distribution of medical services and products, this being the product part, prescription drugs. I don't believe the government should be running the whole show. But I do believe that we have created such a complicated mechanism today that the individual, in this case patient, has very little control over their medical life. And here's how I divided the baby on this bill, and yes, I did support it, and I do support it. I will be voting for it. That is that the insurance companies have created a network of providers of drugs, pharmacists, pharmacies. And the question is, should all of those pharmacies within this network already established by the medical insurance company, should they have the prerogative to provide all of the drugs that are allowed, or should there be this carve-out for the really expensive ones so that only an exclusive group of providers, which is what they do apparently today or contemplate doing more of. 123, Senate Bill 123 says no, if you're within the network as a prescription drug provider, that you should have the ability to provide all of those prescription drugs. Now, we live in a world where well over 50% of all costs are paid for by the government in one form or another, with all the strings and all the controls and all the mechanisms, and we've turned it into such a system that it is almost unimaginable and unfathomable to work your way through as a patient. And what I think is probably at stake here is, can the small independent pharmacy be allowed to survive within this highly regulated system or not? Because these specialty drugs comprise 25% of all the costs for drugs today, and they told me it would be closer to 50%. Well, that's a big piece of the pie. And if you're going to cut out the small independent from that big a piece of the pie, I suspect you're going to get rid of a lot of them. So I see 123 as holding back from some monopolistic practices that are going to have severe ramifications on how much competition will be available among pharmacies in the future. That's why I support 123. I see it as something necessary to keep the local pharmacists out there, as opposed to allowing the big medical insurance companies from specifying only these really big providers will be allowed. I think we need to put a limit there. And for that reason, I'm supporting 123.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to correct a couple of misconceptions. We're not talking about all drugs. We're just talking about specialty drugs. And in fact, 95% of small pharmacies in Colorado have contracts with our insurers to dispense drugs. This bill is specifically dealing with a small portion of that business. And if you look at absolute number of prescriptions, it's probably 5% of the total prescriptions that are issued. So the other 95% will continue to be distributed by our local pharmacies. What we are talking about are the very high-cost drugs, and Senator Lundberg is right. It's expected that they're going to account for 50% of the drug cost, but that money actually goes to the pharmaceutical manufacturer. It doesn't go to the dispensing pharmacy. They get a small fee for dispensing, and they don't get the huge amount of money that the drug costs. And it's because of that it's going to be 50% of the cost, that the estimate is that by changing our method of delivering this, we have the potential to increase costs by as much as $60 billion over 10 years. So again, the pharmacy is still there. It's doing 95% of the dispensing. 95% of our pharmacies are in that market. What we're pulling out are the specialty drugs. Interestingly, the accuracy rate in dispensing is higher by mail order than by in-person dispensing, and there are studies that show that. In addition, adherence, or people taking the medication, is higher with mail order than by in-person dispensing. And finally, I'd like to say that if a number of these drugs perish, so you can't really just have them at all the pharmacies because they might expire before they get dispensed. And so that's part of why these drugs are taken care of in such a special way. Now, I actually love our local pharmacies, and I'm really furious at the way in which we've turned pharmacists into dispensing machines when machines could do that. Our pharmacists are very well trained. I think they should be part of the medical team. I think they should be helping doctors manage medications and manage diseases. But I don't think they should be doing this specialty drug thing because unfortunately it doesn't increase accuracy, it doesn't improve patient outcomes, and it does increase cost. The last thing I'd like to speak to is whether the government shouldn't be running the whole show, is what my colleague said. Interestingly, by doing this, we are running the show. We're saying to Casey and to NFIB, we know it's cheaper for you to contract with those big companies, but we're going to tell you that you have no choice. You have to contract with a small company. And so I would say voting no on this bill is not putting the government into the business's business, and I'd ask for a no vote.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say one last thing, that there are competing reports out there that show various results from these. 17 other states have done this. In fact, 17 other states have chosen any other willing provider, not only in pharmacies, but sometimes with doctors, in hospitals, et cetera. So other states have done this, and none of them have been repealed. If they were not working, they would have been repealed. And so I wanted to point out that there are competing reports out there, and that you might show some saying yes, you might say some saying no. Just wanted to say one last time, I am a yes on Senate Bill 123.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you. And I do want to say that actually no other state has any willing provider targeted at specialty drugs. And as the senator from Berthoud was saying, right now specialty drugs are only 10% of the drug market. They're anticipated to be 50% in 10 years. And so that's what we're trying to do, is not impact that as the future goes forward. In addition, if you think about it, if 95% of our pharmacies can already dispense, actually any of the pharmacies can go through the application process to see whether they can become a specialty drug. And to Senator Newell's cat, these PBMs actually have contracts with local pharmacies, so if something happens, there are couriers on the ground that can deliver your medication if it doesn't come in time. It's actually to the insurer's disadvantage for patients not to have their disease controlled. And so they do have backup mechanisms to make in-person deliveries from the ground when it's needed. They can also make special arrangements for deliveries if you have a sensitive drug and can't receive it at home. You can get a waiver to get that at a different place. So I don't want you to think that we're completely locking patients into this.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 123? Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to be brief on this, folks, just let's be clear as far as where this bill is wanting to take us. I've heard some chatter on this that what we might be doing is interfering with contract. What we might also be doing in the current situation is interfering with actual trade across the broader spectrum of the retailers. And what we've currently have in our system, in our current healthcare system, is if we have the concept that we are somehow a free market in healthcare, of course, I don't think any of us hold on to that fantasy, because it is a fantasy. What we are doing, whenever we are affecting something in healthcare with legislation, we are moving the line of control from one side to the other or somewhere in between. And what we are doing here with this piece of legislation is moving that line back over where it benefits the consumer, where it benefits the market, where it benefits access to these specialty drugs in rural Colorado. If you want to vote for access for these specialty drugs, better access, better cost, better providers of these drugs in these smaller independent pharmacies, then we vote for this bill. I think it's that simple. This is a vote for the little guy. This is a vote for the consumer. This is a vote for the patients, where they can get the access to that specialty drug where they want to get it from in a quicker and more efficient fashion. I would ask for a yes vote on this, folks. This does help rural Colorado, but it will help all of Colorado in that sense. Better access to these medications, better access to these drugs from where we want them from. How is that ever a bad thing? Vote yes.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would dispute that we're giving patients better care, since the research indicates that doing it the way in which we're doing it delivers better care. And I would also like to say that, as many of you know, I don't often quote KC and NFIB, but it was their testimony that specifically said that we were interfering in their ability to contract. And so not being a business owner myself, I have to take them at their word that if they think this is the case, that is what we're doing. And I agree, we do not have a free market in healthcare, and that is because there is no value to life. And unfortunately, patients can't always know what the right thing is to do, and there's a lot of trust involved in this. And so at the end of the day, I think if the research supports the way in which the insurers are choosing to do this, we should not, as a General Assembly, get in their way.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 123? Senator Crowder.
Just one final comment. You know, this is, you've just heard about, well, the Chamber of Commerce opposes this. This is about control. You know, you have a yes vote for this would be for the people. You know, I learned something very interesting from our Senate President recently. He said, once we introduce a bill, it's a bill of the people. And I believe that. This is no longer a R or D bill or whatever. This is a bill for the people of the state of Colorado. That's what I believe on this. And I think if we're going to give the people the control on pharmaceuticals, we need to start now. And I think a yes vote on this would do that and send that message. Ladies and gentlemen, I move 1, 2, 3 and ask for your support for this.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before division has been called. Will all those in the favor not in the chamber not entitled to vote please be seated? The motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 123. All those in favor please stand. No, he's not standing. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. That motion passes. Senate Bill 123 is adopted. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 93?
Senate Bill 93 by Senator Sonnenberg concerning compensation to be awarded to owners of mineral interests for diminution in the value of their property rights caused by regulatory restrictions on mineral extraction operations.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 93. I don't believe there's committee review.
To the bills, Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What this bill does is just make clarifying definitions on what is a taking with regard to our Constitution. Ask for a yes vote.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this bill, what it says is that if a local government regulates oil and gas development and diminishes the value of the mineral right, who knows how that's valued in this case, that they have to pay. The taxpayers have to pay for this. And the local government that exercise standard land use control. But I welcome the chance to talk about property rights in oil and gas, because I'm going to tell you about a system where people who do not want to sell their mineral interest, their property right, or lease their property right, remember, this will be used up if it's exploited, this right. So it's not just a lease, you're selling it. So right now, and then I'm going to talk about property values, and then I'm going to talk about housing property values, and then local control. Right now, if you do not want to sell your mineral interest, if you do not want to lease it, the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission can take a vote and force you to sell. It's a form of condemnation. A lot of people don't know about this. It's called forced pooling. And so there are a lot of people. We had testimony from people from Greeley and Windsor, Erie, Longmont, that were really upset that they had to sell their mineral interest. Here's a quote. Here's some testimony, or actually this was a letter sent in. It says, "This bill is cleverly designed to look at rightly seeks compensation for mineral owners who sign leases. In fact, it is more a means to coerce public into accepting drilling anywhere, anytime, that the general public will be punished. Even the mineral owners will be punished because after they are compensated, the local government will have to find a way to replace the loss, most likely increase taxes or fees." That's the local government put in that position. I've been forced pooled. This is a woman from Greeley. If I don't sign a contract, it means I don't want compensation. I want my minerals left intact. An owner who is forced pooled loses his or her right to retain minerals anyway. And this is the kicker. Unlike government eminent domain, this form of corporate eminent domain, an action is a corporate eminent domain for private gain, an action never intended when the U.S. Constitution was written. So that's one thing. That's the mineral right owners selling their mineral interest. The second thing is the neighbors. So one of these rigs shows up by your house. What do you think it does to your property value? There's a gentleman here who testified. He says, "I'm in favor of American energy independence, and I'm in favor of shale development." And then he goes on to talk about property rights. One of my longtime friends had his house on the market during the drilling at the Pratt site. This is in Erie. And he was forced to take his house off the MLS because several potential buyers made comments that they were not interested in buying a house due to the drilling activity nearby. Another friend who is a real estate agent told me that of a home she had listed in Vista Ridge, the same thing happened. The owners were forced to pull the home off the market due to the Pratt site activity, citing negative feedback from prospective buyers. My wife and I are now selling our house due to the proximity of drilling. He talked about losing value in his home. Now, $25,000 out of pocket, he figured. This is the single biggest investment people make in their home, right? That's true of all of us. And this person is selling and loses money doing it. So there's a property right that's affected. And this is the saddest part of all, though. The town of Erie is being torn apart over shale development. Our local social media sites are blowing up over this issue, and residents are name-calling, throwing insults, threatening recalls of town council members, etc. We're done with it. He's talking about his family. I've been called names, insulted, and borderline threatened just because I want to enjoy my home in peace. That's what happens to these communities. Now, some communities have gotten together and put things on the ballot. In the case of Longmont and Lafayette, 60% of the people voted to have a ban on fracking. 60%. This is a bipartisan vote in both of these cities. The first person that contacted me from Longmont was a Republican from eastern Nebraska, the land of common sense conservatism. And he says, "I believe in shale development, but not like this." And so this is a land use that affects people's homes, their value of their homes. It affects the mineral owners underneath. And while this reaches out and tries to help one of those mineral sets of owners, it hurts the other. And this is also about local control on land use, which is a normal thing they do all the time. So for those reasons, I would ask for you to vote no on this bill. I think it's the wrong approach. I think there's a lot of challenges, and hopefully the task force that's convened will come up with something real that gives local governments some real control over these kinds of things. But in the meantime, I ask for a yes vote on this bill.
There's an amendment on the desk. Mr.
A no
Majors.
vote, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you for all my helpers in the well.
There is still an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment 4?
Amendment 004, Senate Bill 93 by Senator Sonnenberg.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L004.
To the amendment, Senator Sonnenberg.
Members, all L004 does is make sure that the little guy, I did indeed, make sure that that little guy, the mineral right itself, clarifies that the mineral owner is who we're talking about here. It's just a clarifying amendment to help make sure we know who we're talking about, that it's not oil and gas, that it's mineral right owners. Ask for a yes vote on the amendment.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also ask for a yes vote on the amendment. There were questions in committee about who actually got compensated, and it became clear that it might be the guy who bought the lease, who is the oil and gas company, and we do really want the mineral owner to be the one to get the money.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 4? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment 4. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment 4 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsor of this bill. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 93, and at the risk of adding to the boringness of your morning, I do think there's a little bit of relevant Supreme Court case law that should be considered here, because these are very serious questions. Inverse condemnation is the process that's being discussed here by which you can actually have the state inversely condemn property and then pay people for it. And there is actually very clear case law on this. There's a case in Colorado called Animas Valley Sand and Gravel versus Board of County Commissioners, which is the Colorado State Supreme Court case. And they're quite clear on this question, which is there are two parts. One, there are two ways you can prove inverse condemnation. One is a per se taking, which means you have to show that the value of the property is next to zero, which is not the case here. The second would be a fact-based taking, which is you could establish that despite the absence of per se, there are enough combined variables that show that the property has been diminished that you would still recover that. There are two key points they say about this taking. That is, one is you can't sever the property rights and the mineral rights in this assessment. So you have to look at them as a body of rights bundled together, which is even if you take losses on the mineral rights, if you still retain value in the property rights, that's not considered a full taking. And they actually have considered cases on the exact percentage of loss that would have to be proven to demonstrate a taking. And there's case law in Colorado that has shown that not only is 75% reduction in value not a taking, or 85% not a taking, but actually 92.5% still not judged yet to be a taking. The number we're looking at here is 60%. And so I think given that, one, you're still going to retain some value in both the property estate as well as the mineral estate, given that there is valid public purpose in this, which negates the opportunity for a per se taking. I think that what you have is a proposal here that is not consistent currently with the constitutional interpretation either in Colorado, or there's also a U.S. Supreme Court case on this called Palazzolo, which has the same findings. And so I think the senator is after a very important problem in finding the balance between personal property rights and public safety, that I think there's a spirited debate going on statewide around how to find that balance. I think the commission working on the oil and gas and land use regulations will come up with some good solutions that we should wait to hear from. But I think this is a step too far and a step too soon. I would ask for a no vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The good senator from Denver makes an interesting point, which I believe really supports the bill. And that being that case law has established certain percentages. That means the courts have sat down and said, okay, well, we've got to figure out where is that dividing line appropriate. Well, the courts do that only when the legislature doesn't get its job done. And in this case, the bill is to get the job done and to state, no, this is where the line is drawn. So if courts have given some other lines, guess what? They are secondary to the decision-making process. The legislature is primary. Therefore, this bill does address the issue appropriately in the appropriate jurisdiction of the legislature. Therefore, it is appropriate to say, yes, vote for this bill.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a good point. I have to concede. I was telling your colleagues that, and I should tell you that. And so I did think about this point. And I think the challenge that is raised there is if the legislature does want to step in and make a statement about what the allocation of loss should be, then I think we would have to do it symmetrically, which is we would have to say, any loss, if a loss in mineral rights, if a loss in property rights results from a loss in the mineral estate, then it also would be true that action on the mineral estate would cause loss to the property estate, which is Senator's earlier point, which is what the neighbors who now have no mineral rights but have property rights, and those surface rights are now weakened by the activity that is driving the drilling at the mineral estate, ought to also be compensated. You wouldn't want an asymmetrical structure where the only people that get compensated are folks who lose mineral rights but keep surface rights. If you lose surface rights but don't have mineral rights, you would also want, I would think, to step in on behalf of those landowners who are suffering losses. So I think that's why it's a dangerous place to step in and say, we're going to split the estate and compensate folks for mineral losses. If you wanted to do that, I'd think you'd have to enter into the world of compensating all the property and the surface losses that are happening from folks that either are losing rights of way or having sound or decibel level problems or property infringements that are driving down their rates. So I think now you're in the game of backfilling everybody on either side of this debate. I'd rather have us come up with a policy solution that reaches an agreement that doesn't require us to pay all of those parties. I know you like to spend money.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a couple issues I indeed need to address. And as we talk about property rights, the difference between those two property rights, one is guaranteed by the Constitution. The mineral rights and a taking is guaranteed by the Constitution. That's what this bill addresses. Yeah, my property value goes up and down as well, depending on a number of factors. I don't like it, but there's nothing in the Constitution that says that I have a recourse. In this scenario, we're explaining and defining that if we have something, a mineral right guaranteed in our Constitution, be a property right, that if government chooses to take that or devalue that, we have compensation. That's why I asked for a yes vote. I also wanted to go back in and talk to my good friend from Louisville that pooling is, it's a scenario in which you have a deposit under a number of different landowners. And instead of having 7 or 8 different holes in the ground, you have one, and they figure out what that pooling looks like. It's not a forced sale. It's not forcing someone to sell a mineral right. It is a way to distribute it. It is a way to distribute oil and gas through just one production hole. This is an important bill to make sure that property rights are recognized. That's why I asked for a yes vote.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, the good senator from Sterling
made this a due process bill, and he said that in committee, that this is about due process. It's not about oil and gas and about fracking. But the opponents turned it into oil and gas and fracking. And there's heard a lot of testimony, as the good senator from Louisville said, was that that it involved a lot of property value discussion. Well, one of the opponents mentioned that Greeley is falling apart because of oil and gas and fracking. That's not true. Greeley has one of the strongest economies in the state because of oil and gas. It has low unemployment. We have very low property taxes. The county has no debt. And it's all mostly because of oil and gas. As a matter of fact, they're going to be fracking underneath my house, and I live right by the university in Greeley, and they're going to be fracking underneath there. And yes, I own the mineral rights, and I say, go get them. My property value is increasing. We did hear a lot of discussion from people from Erie and how they were upset about the oil and gas and the fracking and their property values. Well, the one rig that they were concerned about was next to the landfill in Erie. Now, I contend that the landfill has more to do with the property value than one rig does, but here's what happened in Erie with their property values. 2012, the average home price was $285,000. In 2015, it was over $370,000. The median sale price in 2011 was approximately $250,000. In 2015, it went up to over $370,000. The median list price in 2011 was $290,000, and in 2015, it's over $400,000. In Weld County as a whole, it's increased 14.1% in the last several years. So I would say there's an argument to be made that oil and gas and fracking increases people's property values and not decreases. I would ask for an aye vote on this bill because let's get back to what it's about. It's about due process, and people have a right to be compensated because we can't take people's property without compensating them. So I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 93? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 93. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 93 is adopted. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 139?
Senate Bill 139 by Senator Hill and Representative Lee concerning allowing the Safe to Tell program to reveal the identity of a person who makes a fraudulent report in connection therewith requiring a post-enactment review of the implementation of this act.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move that Senate Bill 139 lay over to February 27.
You've heard the motion of laying over Senate Bill 139 until February 27th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 139 is laid over until February 22nd. Mr. Majors, will you please, 27th. Senate Bill 139 is laid over until February 27th. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to House Bill 1074?
House Bill 1074 by Representative Veal, Senator Crowder, concerning the liability of an individual member of a board of county commissioners in a legal proceeding in which the board is found liable.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 151074 forward, as well as the committee report from local government.
To the committee report, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we have on the committee report is basically a strike below. The drafter put the original bill on the wrong code, and what 001 does is transfer from the wrong code back to the 145-117, and that's all it is. And it just straightens it out. It was issued incorrectly, and the amendment says the same thing basically, but it just straightens them so there's no complication in the future, and that's all there is to it.
Is there any further discussion on the local government committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the local government committee report for House Bill 1074. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Local government committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, what we have is a situation that is connected directly to the Fair Campaign Act. What it states, if this is on a county level, county commissioner, if you have a county commissioner group, say you have two or 3 on the commission that votes in favor of an issue, and that issue turns out to be something that, if that money is allocated toward an issue and then there's culpability on that there is a certain amount of corruption, then they won't be suing the entire board, but just those individuals who voted for that and moved that to be almost an illegal act, and that's all it does. Basically, like I said, it's tied to the Fair Campaign Act, and we're trying to clean up an issue with the counties so this type of situation does not happen again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of House Bill 1074 as amended in the Local Government Committee. With the amendment, the bill did pass 7-0. Thank you.
Senator Crowder.
With that, if there's no more discussion, Mr. Chair, I move House Bill 1074 forward with an aye vote.
Seeing no more discussion, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1074. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1074 is adopted. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
Go for it. Give me the fish. I made a commitment. I'm screwed.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, will you please read the report?
February 20th, 2015, Mr. President, your committee of the whole basic reports under consideration. The following tax bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 101 as amended, Senate Bill 8 as amended, Senate Bill 123 as amended, Senate Bill 93 as amended, passed on second reading in order and gross, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1074 as amended, passed on second reading in order to revise, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 135 and Senate Bill 139 laid over until February 27, 2015, retaining their place on the calendar.
I have heard there's an amendment. Oh, Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
There is an amendment. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Committee of the Whole Amendment 1?
Committee of the Whole Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 123. Senator Aguilar moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to show that Senate Bill 123 as amended did not pass.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I just wanted to clarify two things again.
You need to move it.
Oh, I'd like to move Amendment 1 to the Committee of the Whole report.
Continue.
I was asking again for a no vote on Senate Bill 123, and I wanted to remind you of two things. First of all, specialty drug dispensing is a really small part of what small rural pharmacies do. If you think about the population in rural areas, the percentage of that population that might have an illness that needs a specialty drug is really very small. And so while I share your concern about the role of the pharmacist, I don't think that the specialty drug is what's going to make or break them, because as it is right now, even in big cities, it's less than 5% of their business. And as time goes forward, it's still going to be, I think it's less than 1% right now, but we're estimating it'll still be less than 5%. And again, they do not get the drug at the same price. They do pay a higher drug price in the smaller pharmacies if they're not part of the network already, but I'm told 95% of our pharmacies are part of the networks. So I'd ask you again for a no vote on 123.
Further discussion. Actually, the motion is to adopt the amendment to the Committee of the Whole, which would...
Sorry.
Senator
I asked you
Aguilar.
for a yes vote on the cow.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you. I asked for a no vote on this. I believe it's not quite accurate, so I would ask for a no vote.
Is there further discussion on the Committee of the Whole Amendment 1? Are there any no votes? Senator Newell, Minority Leader Carroll, Senator Kerr, Senator Lundberg, Senator Crowder, Senator Grantham, Senator Lambert, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Stedman, Senator Donovan, Senator Jones, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Hodge, Senator Scheffel, Senator Marble. Further no votes. Excuse me. Yes, that's where we are, right? Further no votes. With 18 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that amendment is adopted. We are now back to the original motion, which is to adopt the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 15-101 as amended, Senate Bill 1508 as amended, Senate Bill 1593 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 15-1074 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 15-135 and 139 laid over until February 27th and retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 15-123 as amended, lost on second reading. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title, or would you please read the appointments?
Member of the Energy Impact Assistance Advisory Committee for a term expiring August 24, 2017, Daniel Fernandez of Dove Creek, Colorado, and occasioned by the resignation of Vicki L. Spencer of Gunnison, Colorado, appointed.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the Senate confirm the governor's appointments listed on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, which includes a member of the Energy Impact Assistance Advisory Committee.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, Daniel Fernandez is confirmed on the Energy Impact Assistance Advisory Committee. Committee reports.
February 19, 2015, Committee on Transportation. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 172 be postponed indefinitely. February 19, 2015, Committee on Transportation. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1004 be referred to the Committee on Appropriations. February 19, 2015, Mr. President, the Committee on Education has had under consideration as that hearing on the following appointments recommends the appointments to be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Board of Governors of the Colorado State University System for terms expiring December 31st, 2018. Mark Allen Gustafson of Windsor, Colorado serves as a member who has substantial experience in the production of agriculture and to serve as a Republican, reappointed. Dennis Eugene Flores of Pueblo, Colorado to serve as a Democrat, reappointed. February 19, 2015, Committee on Education, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 138 be amended as follows and also amended before the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation.
Message from the House.
February 20th, 2015. Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted the advisory statute House Bill 1048. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted the advisory statute House Bill 1187 is amended, House Bill 1207 is amended, House Bill 1122 is amended, House Bill 1174 is amended. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bills 24 and 41. The House has adopted and returns herewith Senate Joint Resolution 9.
Message from the Reviser.
February 20th, 2015, we herewith transmit without comment House Bill 1048 without comment as amended House Bills 1122, 1174, 1187, and 1207.
Announcements. Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, sir. I just want to acknowledge that today is the 50-year anniversary of the start of the Head Start program. And this morning we had an interesting discussion about early childhood and the importance of investing in early childhood. And I just want to quickly share some Colorado Head Start statistics from 2013. But in 2013, 11,875 children were served. 776 children who are homeless were served. Children with disabilities served 1,829. Families receiving support services 8,312. 94% of Head Start teachers with degrees have degrees in early childhood education. 63% have a BA or advanced degrees. Economic impact $76.5 million in Colorado, and total jobs 3,556. There's also a pretty significant return on the investment. For every dollar invested, public dollar invested in Head Start, there's an annual return on the investment ranging from $7 to $9. Today, I know there's some disagreement perhaps, but I think it's appropriate to acknowledge the Head Start program and its 50 years of helping our kids. Thank you.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and happy weekend, everyone. I want to invite you Monday morning or Monday at noon to join us for the Aerospace Caucus that will be in 365 or 356 at noon. Come and join us, and look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you are all welcome to join us in Mr. Brown's attic, which is in the Capitol building. It is up above us, actually. If you've never been there, please come. We are having a reopening of Mr. Brown's attic after the renovation, and we'll be having a ribbon cutting, some light refreshments, and we would love to have you there. That is 1 o'clock, thank you, 1 o'clock in Mr. Brown's attic, up the stairs that way in the north west part of the building.
Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as you noticed on your desk this morning, you got a little gift from the Colorado Dental Association. Some may need it more than others. No, just kidding. We all need it, in fact. But as you know, today is their day at the Capitol, and you saw many of them come in and out this morning and join us here on the floor. And you may have even talked to some of the dentists from your own area out in the lobby today. They are currently having their lunch and meeting down in room 112, down in the basement. So if you could go down there and join them, even for just a few minutes, and say hello to the dentists here in Colorado and the Colorado Dental Association, I know they would greatly appreciate it. Room 112, they started at 10:30. They'll be ending around 1 o'clock, so get on down there and say hi.
Further announcements. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just a couple of things to make note of. As we all know, on Monday, February the 23rd, we will be memorializing former Senator Regis Groff, and his family will be here. A number of invitations have been sent out to former senators, and so that will be happening straight away when we convene at 10 o'clock on Monday. We'll have the logistics. We'll have a number of people coming, so we'll have to manage the folks that are available to be on the floor versus the gallery. So we'll be sensitive to that. If you happen to know somebody who you think would like to be here for that memorial, please invite them accordingly. At the same time, we're all aware of the predicted snowfall that we're expecting over the weekend. So unless you hear anything, we will plan to be here at 10 o'clock on Monday, but please take note and pay attention to the call tree information that you have, as well as the Ready Op program, where we receive notifications through our cell phones, and we will let you know if there's a cancellation or a delay. That's for Monday. In addition, a couple of key announcements. As many of you know, and has kind of been circulating throughout the building, the north gate is currently having significant issues. A lot of the clickers aren't working. Some are not, some are. If your clicker does not work, and you can get in by obviously using the call box to State Patrol. Otherwise, you can get in through the south entrance. They're working on it, and it'll be fixed forthwith. In addition, this is important, especially, it was important for all of us. There have been 2 assaults over the past couple of days, one outside the immediate area and another in the immediate area of the Capitol. There was a carjacking in the area, and so State Patrol is encouraging us to use extreme caution in the area. Share the information with others, use the buddy system if you're leaving late, et cetera, and please take note of that. The troopers are available. When in doubt, just contact one of them and they'll walk you out to your car, but there has been some activity in the area surrounding the Capitol. So stay close to your phones for the Ready Op notification for Monday, depending on the snow. With that, Mr. President, move the Senate adjourn to 10 a.m. Monday, February 23rd.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The Senate will be adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, February 23rd.